Chris and Mike, thank you so much for that. And Josh, I really appreciate it. My family roots can be traced back to settlers who came to California in 1846, just a few weeks literally ahead of the Donner Party. I'm a fifth generation Californian. I lived elsewhere, as you know, for a good while, but I was born and raised in Santa Clara County, where my great-great-great-grandparents settled. I went to college and I was married down the road a bit in Stanislaus County. And our first child was born in Sonoma County. So I like to think I have California bona fides. Coming back here, though, has made me think it may be more than a place that holds a third of my life's story. It may sound a bit woo-woo, but since I returned, I felt a deep spiritual connection to my home state that I actually didn't expect. And I mention all of this because it's been a bit more emotional than I anticipated to prepare this Pride Month sermon. Personal stories in this sermon I've told and shared in other churches before, but their connection to California has been choking me up more, so I may pause some time. I chose the Bible lesson for today for pride. In it, Jesus famously declares, "You are the light of the world." And often sermons on this text are about not hiding faith under a bushel. But it can also be heard to be Jesus' teaching that each human is a light meant to shine, that regardless of what the culture or others or even we might think, God sees us all for what we are, great, good light, sparks of God, and that we need to let those lights shine, and ours and others as well. As I mentioned a few weeks back on Pentecost, we need to fan those sparks, the bright flames in ourselves and others. And sadly, many live in a metaphoric darkness and don't understand themselves as a light in the world, a spark of God. Others make them feel and treat them as the least among us. And we see this a lot with things around issues regarding race and religion, disability, poverty, alien status, gender identification, sexual orientation. Things that make a person seem different from those in power are often used to dampen the God spark and are used as excuses to treat others poorly. And the first part of the 21st century America began with the promise of a much better honoring of the God spark in LGBTQ plus Americans. And tragically, the past decade, the promise has been stymied with renewed, ungodly, ugly conduct by homophobic sections of the nation trying to dampen God sparks again. The efforts never fully ended and have a long and tragic history, but we seem to be making some headway. Pride Month started nationwide in 1999. And by 2015, LGBTQ plus marriages were made legal across the country. Civil rights were being provided and things were looking less scary. And now things are looking very scary, hearkening back to ugly ways of unloving efforts to dim the light of goodly, godly made human beings. I had brushes in California way back in the day in my schooling with very ugly, unloving efforts to dim the light of LGBTQ plus adolescents. Greatly amped up threats and harm coming out of Washington remind me of those ugly efforts. And as good as things seemed to be going early in this century, unloving efforts didn't truly stop. For LGBTQ plus adolescents, light-dimming efforts have continued in schools. StompOutBullying.org reports, quote, 9 out of 10 LGBTQ plus students reported being harassed and bullied. Over 1/3 of LGBTQ plus students are physically assaulted. About 2/3 of LGBTQ plus students reported having been sexually harassed. More than 30% reported missing at least a day of school in the past month out of fear for their personal safety. Gay teens are 8.4 times more likely to report having attempted suicide and 5.9 times more likely to report high levels of depression compared with peers from families that reported no or low levels of family rejection. These type of statistics sadden me greatly. And while great strides have occurred, the fact is it's not just recent politics. There's a long streak of ungodly oppression and meanness in our culture toward LGBTQ plus Americans that has mostly been spearheaded by unloving religious elite and their followers. And such folks ignore the fact that it is beyond a reasonable doubt in science that a goodly portion of humanity has been naturally created as LGBTQ plus. And that the Bible literally reports that God declared all of creation very good. We heard that in the invocation I just read. As a part of creation, LGBTQ plus are irrefutably both good and godly made. Yet there are sinful religious elite and their followers who reject and hurt LGBTQ plus Americans for how God made them. As a heterosexual, as a cis male and Christian clergy, I have often been asked over the years why I'm an advocate for LGBTQ plus justice. And I've been one since high school. My sadness and my advocacy are not just about statistics and reports of people being brutalized for being LGBTQ plus, or because religion is involved, or because people have shared stories with me of such violence and ugliness pervading their lives. Although those are good reasons. My sadness and my quest for justice for LGBTQ plus neighbors and relatives also includes deeply personal experiences, including those brushes with unloving efforts to dim the light of adolescent LGBTQ plus that I mentioned. All of those other things are enough to be involved. But those statistics about bullying and harassment echo experiences I had in middle school, high school, and college back in the day. For most males of my generation, small males endure taunting and brutality by the older and bigger kids. Deriding as not being heterosexual enough for their liking was often a part of it. Physical violence, harassment, and threats were common. I was small until I was a junior in high school. I was mistreated. And no one should have to undergo such bullying, not LGBTQ, not straight, not black or white, brown or disabled, Christian or Muslim, Jew or Buddhist, agnostic or atheist, large or small, short or tall, poor or rich, male or female. And when I got involved in theater, the harassment increased. And not because of my size. You know why? Because in the teen world of the 1970s, to be an actor meant to many that you were gay. Didn't matter that tough guy heroes like John Wayne were actors. Males who were in drama were considered gay, and I was perceived and labeled as gay and became a part of some of the statistics of violence. I may not have been an LGBTQ plus teen, but I was mistreated as if I were. I experienced name-calling, threats, assault, and battery. And the worst of it took place when a gang of athletes in the fall of 1977 started shoving and harassing me in the halls of the Stanislaus State College dorm. That gang violence escalated to written death threats left in my dorm mailbox. It was very ugly. And my best friend in the theater department had it even worse. He went off to graduate school and was brutally beat up on campus by a bully who perceived him as gay. Both my friend and I were straight males. But we were subjected to senseless violence because some males declared us to be gay by our major in college. That's how unthinking and frankly stupid hate can be. But you know what? Even though our being straight didn't prevent some from perceiving and labeling us gay and trying to hurt us, it saved us from something else. Much of the culture's sense of unworthiness. We had to wrestle with some bullies' sense of our worth, but not large segments of the culture. The abuse we encountered was only a tiny sliver of a fraction of what LGBTQ plus encountered and sadly encounter still. When you are LGBTQ plus, a much larger swath of the culture tries to snuff out the light of your goodly, godly made LGBTQness. Who you are, who God made you to be. Anything outside the cultural norm of heterosexuality can be suspect to people wrongly and sinfully raised to think there's something wrong if you are not heterosexual. And this is sad, and it's tragic and wrong, since all of God's creation is not just good, but right and frankly normal. As cis men, my drama pal and I didn't have the question placed in our heads by the culture and our churches that there was something wrong with us. We knew we fit the heterosexual norm. I wasn't rejected by my family, and I didn't attempt suicide because of my sexuality. If I wanted to, all I had to do to become acceptable to those in college who bullied me for being gay was to change my major and get out of drama. But those who were goodly, godly made LGBTQ plus couldn't walk away from who they were made to be by God just because there was a man-made created box others wanted them in. And while I sometimes suffered types of harassment, my gay classmates and neighbors suffered many times more because they were always gay, not just by being in drama departments, but by being who God very goodly made them to be. My dearest friend in high school was also named Scott. And our family called him Scotty, so we know which of us they meant. But Scotty was a wonderful person with a sweet, loving disposition and an exceptional singing voice. We performed together in plays and choirs and family singing sessions. And during the bicentennial, we even worked up a fantastic Star-Spangled Banner that we sang for family and friends. And one evening during my senior year of high school, I received a slurring, sad call from Scotty after he'd taken a bottle of pills in an effort to end his life. He was one of the LGBT kids that were driven by hate to attempt suicide. Thankfully, we got Scotty out of that attempt alive, but he ended up living life recklessly with harmful, even near-death experiences. And eventually, I went off to college and got married, and Scotty went on national tours, musicals, and over time, we lost track of one another. A number of years ago, I made an effort to reconnect and sadly learned Scotty had died in his 40s, so a combination of problems due to ill health. And it might not have been suicide, but he died way before his time. LGBTQ kids today are still far more likely to attempt suicide, especially those of highly rejecting families. Scotty's father rejected him. He fit the category. And I had another dear friend, Jeff, who I mentioned a few weeks ago. Jeff went to church youth group and the same high school with me, and we were in plays together. He was the actor who was Barnaby to my Cornelius and Hello Dolly, and so we sang and we danced together. And Jeff looked up to me like a younger brother might. He hung out at my family's house in San Jose. And later, when Nancy and I lived in Los Angeles, Jeff was down there too, and we met him once or twice. And unlike Scotty, Jeff didn't call me after he took his bottle of pills. And I wish that he had. And I mentioned before he died of an overdose almost 45 years ago. I still mourn that loss. It was very hard to be bullied as a teen. I hated going to school. I hated being small and helpless. I hated being mistreated and having my life threatened at college. But I didn't try to take my life over that because no one had falsely taught me that a major core of my being, how God created me, made me a darkness. Except for those who perceived me as gay, no one treated me like I was not a light. How God made me, how Jesus declares in our reading today. My dear friends Scotty and Jeff were taught otherwise. They were wonderful people, full of light, and a light in many people's lives, but in many ways the culture hid their lights, even trying to put them out and argue, and tragically succeeded. Both Jeff and Scotty could not see their own bright lights. They were hidden under a bushel of hate. Because they were gay, they were falsely told by many at the time that to be that way was to have no light, was to be a dark and sinful being going to hell. What nonsense, what hateful ungodliness, what harmful lies. And they still sinfully go on to this day. Not only are all humans goodly and godly, but God commands Christians call no one profane or unclean. Moreover, Jesus put absolutely no conditions on his statement in today's text. He literally says, you are the light of the world. Speaking to every single person. You and me are lights of the world. And Jesus was speaking to all people. And everyone needs to hear that. Teens need to hear that. Scotty and Jeff needed to hear that. Today's Scotties and Jeff need to hear that. No matter where you have been, what you have done, what others may say, please take Jesus seriously. You are the light of the world. And don't be afraid to do as Jesus says, and let your light shine. In 2010, Katy Perry came out with her now iconic Fireworks song and video. We were going to try and play that because it's absolutely beautiful. We can't do it for technical reasons, but I encourage you to go look and see it. They make Jesus' point in our lesson that you are the light of the world and what his command to let your light shine looks like. The Firework song and video bring the hope. And here in Jesus' word, we are lights. And we are supposed to shine the light that we are. And before I close, I want to read some of the now old but goody uplifting lyrics that Katy Perry sang. You just got to ignite the light and let it shine. Just own the night like the 4th of July. Because, baby, you're a firework. Come on. Show them what you're worth. Make them go, oh, 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 at you. Shoot across the sky. To every person, LGBTQ+, straight, disabled, abused, rich, poor, middle class, young, old, middle-aged, teen, men, women, black, white, people of color, conservatives, moderate, liberal, theists, agnostics, and atheists. Hear what Jesus says. You are the light of the world. Let your light shine. And so I know that we all heard what Jesus said. Can I have an amen?
Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Scott. That was dynamic. I really enjoyed it.